Well, welcome to New Life. Actually, I'm going to run and get the water bottle. I forgot it on the way up. Welcome to New Life. My name is Andy. I'm one of the pastors here. On Friday, we did some capture the flagging, and it was awesome. But I am old. Is anybody else extremely sore? My back is sore. My neck was killing me. I mean, I was standing up worshiping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my back hurts so much. I need an icy hot or something. A Shaquille O'Neal thing, But anyways, I've been around New Life for quite a while. I got connected in my freshman year, and I've kind of stuck around since then. I graduated in 2007, and after I graduated in 2007, a few of us, 2 couples and myself, we went to the country of Jordan, and we were basically missionaries there. Yeah, Jordan's awesome. And we basically went and taught English. Now, if you don't know me, know that I love to travel. I also love English, but I love to travel. I just love to see new places. I love to see new cultures. I love to get connected. I love to go there, observe, talk to people, kind of figure out what place. What is this place? What makes this place? And we had the opportunity to go to Istanbul, Turkey. Anybody here been to Istanbul, Turkey? Yeah, you've been to it. That's awesome. Okay, Istanbul, Turkey is incredible. So what happened is kind of all of our crew were kind of walking around Istanbul, and this one night, everybody wanted to do their own thing. So I was like, okay, this is sweet. I kind of connected to this shop owner, and I was like, I'm going to go and talk to this shop owner because I want to learn about Turkey and Istanbul and everything like that. So I go to this shop, and I'm walking down the street, go to the shop, but the shop is just it's just filled with people. And I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to talk to this shop owner. So I just buy some cookies, and I don't know if you've had these cookies before, but they're called Biscrem cookies. Has anybody heard of those? They are incredible. They have a nougat, chocolate nougat in the middle. They're just the best cookie ever, seriously. And they come in a little roll like this. So I got my cookies. I'm walking back to my hotel, and this guy comes up to me and is like, he's like, hey, are you Palestinian? Now, I understand. My wife married me because I look Arab. So I know I look a little Arab, but I'm not Palestinian, and I'm not Turkish. But he's like, are you Palestinian? I'm like, no, I'm American. He's like, oh, well, my wife is Palestinian. I'm like, I live in Jordan. And we just start, shooting the bull for 5 minutes. And he's like, and I'm like, this is my guy. This is the guy that I get to talk to, about Turkey and about the culture and everything like that. So I'm really excited. He's like, well, let's go and get some tea. I'm like, all right, well, I'll get some tea. So across the street is this tea place. I'm like, okay, well, let's go get some tea. So we walk over to the tea place, but it's just filled with smoke. It's one of those places where you smoke shisha or hookah. And he's like, I do not like these places. It's too smoky. And I'm like, okay, all right, we don't have to go to this place. He's like, well, why don't we go to a pub? And I'm like, well, I don't really drink, but I'm thinking Cheers. And I'm like, okay, there's this neighborhood pub. And I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll go with it. So we're walking a couple blocks, and we come to his car. And I'm like, I was told when I was younger not to get into cars with strangers. But for some reason, I was like, this is a great decision. So I'm like, all right, we'll go in the car. So I'm in his car, and we're driving through Istanbul, and we drive past these pubs that we had already walked past. And then we go over, there's a little river, you go over the river, and then you get into this other area of the city, and I've never been in this part of the city before. I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. And I'm like, where are you taking us? He's like, it's okay, I know of a great place. And I'm like, all right, I guess I trust you. So we go, we park, and then we walk down the stairs, a lot like Cheers. We walk down the stairs into this kind of shady establishment. I'm like, what is going on here? So we go, we order something, we sit down, we order something, and he's like, well, let's split it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So we're sitting down, we're enjoying our little meal, and then these 2 people, the couple comes over, they sit down with us, and it's like, okay, and then the waiter comes over, and the waiter is like, do you want some champagne? And I'm like, no, I don't want, I'm easy on the bubbly. I don't want any bubbly. So, him and I don't drink any of the champagne, but the couple, they're drinking the champagne. Then I look at my watch. It's 11:30. And I'm like, okay, it's about time to go now. So, let's ask for the bill. They bring the bill over, and the bill is 5,000 lira. Now, maybe you don't know what that translates to, but that's 4,000 American dollars. And And he's like, let's split it. And I'm like, I don't have the money for this. I have 100 lira in my wallet. I'm like, I don't have the money for this. So I'm like, I'm not paying this. So we go and we walk to the manager's office. So we walk to the manager's office. I'm looking at the manager, and I'm like, I'm just a poor college student, which is a little bit of a fib because I wasn't a college student. But I'm like, I'm just a poor student. I don't have any money, and I didn't have money. I'm like, I can't pay this bill. Then I'm pleading with the guy next to me. I'm like, help me out here, bro. Come on, talk him out of this. Then I'm pleading with this guy, and I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. What's going on here? Then at one point, I'm like, I'm out of here. So I just get up, and I'm gonna bust out of here. And then there's these two burly Turkish men literally throw me back onto the couch. So I'm like, oh crap. This is not gonna go well. So then he's like, give me your wallet. So he gets my wallet, takes the 100 lira out, and just sees that I have debit cards. But then he's like, what is that? What is that bulge in your pocket? He's like, is that a wad of cash? And so I unzip the pocket, and out comes the Biz Creme cookies. And he's like, oh, this is a poor man. He's like, okay, take them to the ATM. Conveniently, there's an ATM right outside of this shady establishment. So they take me to the ATM, and I have my bank card that has all of my money, not a lot of money, but all of my money for the rest of my time in Jordan in this account. And they go and they do an astronomical amount. They swipe it, for God is just so good that it just rejected it. And then they have to go, they do a smaller amount, and then they take the money out, which is $1,000. Have you ever had that sinking feeling of oh my gosh, I can never get that back? I bring this story up because we have all been impacted by money. We've all been impacted by money. Just as a college student, you guys had to make two choices based on money, just in deciding to come to college. The first one is, what place can I afford? Where can I afford to go? And the second one is, what college will give me the highest or the best career advancement? Now here's the thing, we can't run from money. Money's always going to be a part of us. It's always going to be a part of our world. Even to the day we die, we're going to have to deal with it. So the question that we're answering today is, what place should money take in our lives? What place should money take in our lives? If you guys want to flip with me to Ecclesiastes 5. A little squeak here, Caleb. Thanks. That's Caleb's water bottle right there. A little squeak. Now we've been going through Ecclesiastes. We've been looking at Solomon. Solomon's one of the richest guys who's ever walked the face of the earth. And we're kind of seeing what does Solomon think about life? And especially here, what does he think about money? So, we'll have the passage up there. It's Ecclesiastes 5, verse 8. It says, if you see the poor oppressed in a district, and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things. For one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the fields. Whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless. So your first point in your bulletin is that we live in a world consumed with money. We live in a world consumed with money. If you haven't been around, if you haven't seen the world, we live in this system where money is king, where basically the haves take from the have-nots, where there's this ladder. And this is what Solomon's talking about here. This ladder of, there's one person, and there's one person over another person, and one person over another person, and one person over another person. And then there's the king. There's the boss. And then basically, there's a few that are getting a lot, and some that are not getting as much. That there's this oppression going on. That there's this system where money and status and the position from money, which are king, which reign, which kind of drive our culture, drive everything. But here's the thing, money in itself isn't evil. Paul in 1 Timothy 6, verses 9 through 10, he says, people who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So Paul is not saying that money is the problem. He's saying the love of money is the problem. Now let me ask the question, do we see this in our culture? There's a famous quote in the movie Wall Street by Gordon Gekko. If you've ever heard this quote, it says, "Greed is good." Greed is good. We also see this in just people. We see this idea of greed, this temptation for greed always around the corner. John D. Rockefeller, one of the most richest men who's walked the face of the earth back in the late 1800s, he said this. He said the perfect definition of greed is when someone asked him how much money is enough, he said just a little bit more. When they asked the same question to a real estate tycoon, they said, "I don't want all the land in the world, just whatever touches mine." Now, is it possible that this attitude, that this lives in us? Is it possible? Now, let me give you a quick example and just kind of put yourself in my shoes. Kind of imagine for a second. I was a college student. I'm walking across campus in South Oval, and I find a $20 bill. Have you guys ever had that happen to you? You find a $20 bill, and you're like, wow. You're not thinking about like, man, I'm going to buy toilet paper tonight because I really need it. You're thinking about, oh my gosh, what are all the things that I can buy with this $20 bill? I love books, and I was probably thinking about like, what books can I buy with this $20 bill? I'm so excited. I'm walking across the South Oval. I'm like, I don't have any money in my wallet, so I got this $20 bill now. This is so exciting. So I'm walking to High Street, and then I come across someone who asks me for money. Someone on the street. There's many on High Street. And I'm like, I don't have any ones. I don't have any fives. All I have is just a 20. And there's this immediate tension, this dilemma in us. What do? It's mine. I found it. It's my $20. I was going to spend it. I think this lives in all of us. Have you guys ever felt that before? I don't have anything except for this $20 I'm going to go and spend on a book or spend on whatever. I think this idea, this greed, lives in all of us. The second point is that greed desensitizes us to the needs of others. Greed desensitizes us to the needs of others. What we see in our culture is this idea of the end justifies the means. So if the end is money, then anything that comes in the way of that is just like, we got to get them out. It's like the end, we are going to this goal, and if something's in the way, we have to just push that thing out of the way. Now you guys might think, well, that doesn't apply to me. I'm a college student. I don't have a job yet. But I think we all do it. I did it. I was in biology and chemistry classes with people who were pre-med just like me, and these people were my competitors. These are the people who were competing for research, for internships, for future jobs, for grad schools, and immediately I'm like, that is my end. Like, I want the financial security of these jobs in the future, so this person is in my way. This person is my competitor. And this translates even in the corporate world, where we want the promotion or the financial security that comes from the promotion. This person, my coworker, we're all friends and everything, but as soon as they're vying for my position, this person is an enemy. This person is in my way. The end justifies the means. This greed, it desensitizes us to the needs of others. And this mentality drives our world, it drives the corporate world, it drives just so many different areas. And let me just name a few. The first is in politics. I'm not going to go all political on you or anything, but there's a reality that politicians are bought. For example, there is one group that spent $400 million during the last presidential cycle to give the candidates to go and smear other candidates in order to get those candidates to do what they want. This happens also in sports. Each day a person dies. Each day an immigrant worker dies in the Qatari desert because they are building soccer stadiums for FIFA's next World Cup. But FIFA doesn't really seem to have a problem about that. The Qatari government doesn't have a problem with that. You know why? Because FIFA is making $4 billion for themselves and their sponsors every World Cup. We see this in fashion. I don't know if you guys have heard a thing called fast fashion. Fast fashion is basically where they produce really cheap clothes. They know that the clothes aren't very good quality, but they're cheap. And so the idea is that you just produce more and more and more. Usually every quarter a company will come out with clothes. With fast fashion, they come out with something new every week. So you're constantly like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. So as the costs come lower and lower and lower, the production costs have to be lower and lower and lower. If your tag says Bangladesh, you might have clothes that are fast fashion. I'm not like calling you out. I'm just saying, like, what happens is that there are factories in Bangladesh that are trying to produce, and they basically go and make these factories compete with each other to have the lowest production costs. So a factory, in order to get the clothes, in order to get the production costs have to come low. They go and cut corners. Safety things are violated. The pay is abysmal. Just last year, 1,000 people in Bangladesh died because factories, the buildings literally collapsed because safety standards weren't held up. These are people who are making $2 a day, while the fashion industry is making over $3 trillion a year. Think about that for a second. And it even happens in chocolate. I'm sorry, I have to do it. But are us as Westerners buying the sweet chocolate? What happens is that in order to produce the cocoa, in order to get the cocoa beans, they go and they take kids from villages in Burkina Faso and Mali, and they traffic them down to the Ivory Coast so that they can go to work on these cocoa plantations. Just watch this video, just as even greater evidence of this.
Okay, bonsoir.
Oh, there's one.
We meet a plantation owner. He's from the neighboring country, Burkina Faso.
C'est combien? Si on devait venir quelqu'un là, on peut venir travailler combien?
A child from Burkina Faso can be bought for €230. And that's without haggling. The price includes transport and indefinite use of the child. Most children never get paid.
Now, let me just read this passage real quick. This is what James has to say. James says, now listen, you rich people. Now, we live in America, so that kind of constitutes all of us because we are the most prosperous people who've ever walked the face of the earth. So that's kind of an overall. Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming upon you. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workmen who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered innocent men who are not opposing you. Now you may just say, well, this is the problem of those who are running these companies. Like, this is the problem of the fashion industry, or this is, I'm not a part of that problem, but we're all consumers of it. The reason that the production costs have to go so low in fashion and that they are, enslaving children is because of the consumption of those products. Is it possible that we are consumers? Is it possible that we are part of the problem? Have you ever thought of that? Maybe you don't think you're a consumer, but let me ask you these questions. Have you ever bought something you didn't need? Have you ever bought something you didn't have the money for? Have you ever bought something because you saw a commercial for it? Have you ever bought something and immediately regretted it? Have you ever participated in Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Amazon Prime Day or one of the discount deal bargain days? If you said yes to one of those, you're a consumer. I go to Black Friday, so yes, I am guilty of that just like anybody else. In verse 11 in Ecclesiastes, this is what Solomon says. Solomon says, as goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner except to feast his eyes on them? The next point in your bulletin is that consumerism is based on what you want and not on what you need. Consumerism is based on what you want and not on what you need. There's this idea, this belief that money and what money can buy will somehow bring us happiness. It'll give us this desirable lifestyle. It'll give us a good time. It'll give us good friends. It'll give us comfort, luxury, security, that relationship that we've always wanted. It'll give us freedom. And here's the thing, we are bombarded with this over and over and over. We see over 5,000 ads every day. 5,000 ads every day. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Times Square. I love Times Square, or I love New York. Now I've been to New York so many times that I don't typically go to Times Square. But I remember the first time I went into Times Square, there's just digital everything. There's ads. There's people everywhere. It's crazy. And then when you walk out, when you're done with Times Square, you just feel exhausted. You've just been so overly stimulated, just sensory overload. You're just what the heck just happened? The first time I went there, I was with one of our old pastors, and we're standing in the middle of Times Square, and he's like, this is the pinnacle of what man desires. Right here, if an alien came down to earth, this is the pinnacle of what we have said is the treasure. What everyone should want. The question is, what does this actually make us happy? I have a couple of articles that say differently. There's a psychologist from Northwestern University. They say money doesn't buy happiness, neither does materialism. Research shows that people who place a high value on wealth, status, and stuff are more depressed and anxious and less sociable than those who do not. There's a second one by a guy named David Myers who wrote The American Paradox, Spiritual Hunger in the Age of Plenty. He said, compared with their grandparents, today's young adults have grown up with much more affluence, slightly less happiness, and much greater risk of depression and assorted social pathology. The third one is by Tim Kasser, who wrote The High Price of Materialism. He said, narcissistic desire for external validation fits well with our conception of materialistic values as extrinsic, and focus on others' praise. Thus, it was not surprising to find that students with strong materialistic tendencies scored a high on a standard measure of narcissism, agreeing with statements such as, "I am more capable than other people, and I wish somebody would write my biography someday." The fourth one is from Stephanie Kaza, University of Vermont environmental professor and a Buddhism practitioner. She wrote in her book, Tricycle, the Buddhist Review, which is an odd title, but anyways, she says that research suggests that materialistic values are fueled by insecurity. Consumerism, which has been called a modern religion, tends to capitalize on this insecurity and use it to sell products. In a practical sense, consumerism is a belief system and culture that promotes consuming as the path to self and social improvement. As a dominant cultural force, consumerism offers products to address every dissatisfaction. Here's research that's basically saying that our idea that what we buy is actually going to make us happy actually makes us even more dissatisfied. That it actually isn't enough. And here's the thing, Solomon continues. This is what he says in verse 11. He says, just like, what benefit is it to the owner to buy all this stuff? And then in verse 13, he continues. He says, I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when he has a son, there is nothing left for him. Naked a man comes from a mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hand. Here's the thing. I don't know if you've ever had an instance where you've had to clear out someone's house after they've passed. I don't know if you've ever had to go through with that. But someone's treasure, you imagine this is all their stuff, all their treasures, all the things that they hold dear to them, more than anything else, and then that treasure becomes trash. That treasure gets taken to the curb. The thing is, not only will consumerism not satisfy us, but it won't last. It won't last. These products that we have, they won't last. They are not the true treasure. The question for us is, what treasure are we storing up for ourselves? What treasure are you storing up for yourself? In Luke 12:34, Jesus says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Like, what if someone followed you around? What treasure? What would they say your treasure is? Have you ever thought about that? We have a little guy sitting in the back there, 7 months old. He's literally imitating and mimicking and watching and observing every little thing that we do. So basically he's saying, this is what the world is all about. And you know what? He would probably say, man, I see mommy and daddy like playing with this really cool toy. It has like this glowing screen and it has all these like nifty buttons on it. Like, man, they spend so much time on that. Like, man, all right, mommy and daddy, they put this toy on the ground, and the first time that he crawled, just a couple days ago, he goes, and the first time he crawls, no joke, he crawls not to a toy, not to something that he's like, played with this whole time. He's crawling to my laptop. Because he's thinking, there's something special about this toy. Mommy and daddy, they treasure this. They're on this all the time. Like, man, that's the thing I really want. But here's the thing, what is your treasure? What is the thing that's where your heart is? And maybe it's not a material thing. Maybe it's something else altogether. I had a friend who just fell in love with this girl. But here's the thing, he didn't have any money. It's kind of a problem when you're like, I want to buy a ring for somebody, but I don't have any money. So this is what he did. He just started selling stuff. That's just kind of how my friend is. He's like, I'm just going to sell stuff. So he sold his Mac computer. He's like, well, that's not enough. So then he's like, I'm going to sell the couch. So in the living room, there's no couch anymore. Then he's like, I'm going to sell my dressers. So he just sells his dressers. All of his clothes are just stacked up in piles. And he's like, but I still don't have enough. So he's like, I'm going to sell my king-size bed. He sells his bed. He's literally sleeping on a comforter. There's just nothing left in the house. He's like, I will sell everything in order to get this ring. He finally gets enough money, proposes, and they're married. The thing is, my friend, he valued her. He treasured her. That's where his heart was. And he's like, I'll do anything to get this. I'll do anything to get this. And that's the thing with us and treasure, is that we'll do anything. We will spend hours in the classroom to get something. Because that is where our heart is. So our issue is not a treasure issue. It's not that we don't know what treasure is. Our issue is that we are focused and fixated on the wrong treasure. This is what Jesus has to say in Matthew 13:44. Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. This story is just awesome. And it's unbelievable because you have to imagine this guy's probably just walking through the field. He just has a plan of what his life is going to look like. He might be working on the field, and then he's just digging one day, and all of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, like, this treasure, like he stumbled upon this thing that's just worth so much to him. And he's like, I'll do anything to get this. So he goes and buries it. Then he runs back home. I can't imagine what I'd do if I just started selling our house, selling our stuff, selling our cars. Think of what his family thought. Think of what his friends thought. Think of what his wife thought. His wife probably was like, you're crazy. I'm out of here. Like, he's just selling everything in order to get this treasure, because all these things that he was chasing after are not worth compared to what he had over here. And he just runs over and he's like, oh my gosh, this is the treasure. He goes and gives that money, buys this field, and has the treasure. Jesus is saying, I am that treasure. I am the only one worth being consumed about. I am the only one worth being consumed about. I am the treasure. That when we stumble upon the treasure, he wasn't looking for the treasure. He stumbled upon the treasure. And when we stumble upon this treasure, it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Life, all this stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, like, I might make some crazy decisions. I might do things that people are like, what are you doing? But it's like, I have to have this treasure. I will do anything just to have this treasure. I will do anything just to have Christ. And it's like, here's the thing. Usually what happens is God is like, Andy, I want you to give up this. And then we're like, all right, I'll give up chocolate. Will that make you happy, God? Like, this obligatory, like, what do I have to give up now? But it's like, here, look at the guy. The guy's like in his joy. He's like, oh, I got to give up chocolate? Or I have to like sell my stuff? Like, sure, like, okay. Like, this is so much better than that. Like, absolutely. Tell me what else I have to do. There's this quote in this book called Abba's Child by Brennan Manning. Incredible book, by the way. I've used it before because it's an incredible book. But this is the quote just about the story. When that great joy, surpassing all measure, seizes a man, it carries him away, penetrates his inmost being, subjugates his mind. All else seems valueless compared to that surpassing worth. No price is too great to pay. The unreserved surrender of what is most valuable becomes a matter of course. The decisive thing in the parable is not what the man gives up, but his reason for doing so. The overwhelming experience of discovery. Thus it is with the kingdom of God. That when we stumble upon this treasure, it's like, oh my gosh, I just have to have this. It's like this reckless abandon of ourself in order to get Christ. I'll do anything for this. You know what I mean? You have to think about this. Like, Jesus is the king. Jesus created all the riches in the world. He's the king. He holds the keys. he's in that rich state, comes down, becomes a man, is born. We were talking about this in our dialogue. He's born in a barn. He's born in simple clothes. Like shepherds, not dignitaries, were the first to see him. And then that's how he lived. He lived in obscurity and poverty. And he's basically going around telling people richness is found in me. Not riches, but richness of life is found in me. Not in the stuff, not in the material stuff, but in the Spirit, in me, with me. Not in the stuff here, but with me. Jesus says in Matthew 6, Jesus says, no one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So the question for us is, what will you choose? What will you choose? There's a friend of mine, another friend of mine, who is 25 years old, and he is on the path to become an executive at this grocery chain. And he was he's a bright guy, he's sitting in on the executive meetings. How cool is that? 25 years old, he's made it, he's making 6 figures. But at that same time, he started to fall in love with Christ. He started to see Christ as a treasure, and there's just some things that just didn't sit right with him. For example, he was in a board meeting, and they're talking about the bins. That basically, at grocery stores, if things are they're trying to get rid of their stock, they just go and throw everything out. And they throw everything out in these bins. And they're talking about we are going to lock up the bins, and then we're going to lock up the gates, because we don't want anyone who needs food to come in here and get the bins. We want them to pay money in order to get it. That makes sense. But he's but that isn't, but couldn't we give this to a food pantry or to a shelter or to something? Couldn't we use this food to actually benefit people? And they look at him and they're what concern is that for us? What concern? Why should that concern us? Then the second thing is that when everything with the Affordable Care Act happening, it kind of at 28 hours, then you cannot get benefits anymore. So they decided, well, we're going to just cut all of our hours, all the hours of our employees to under 28 hours so we don't have to give them benefits. It's a really smart decision as a business, but you're basically shafting all of your employees. He's sitting in this meeting and he's why would you shaft the very people who are helping you get profit? Why would you do that? Here's the thing. There is a culture that is going this way, and in order to be like Christ, in order to be about a different kingdom, we are going upstream. And he realized that if he stayed there, if he stayed in that room, he would become just like them. He's I can't do that. He left the lucrative position, and he became a teacher. And now he teaches kids how to play tennis. It's not a lucrative position at all, but it's a position that gives him far more meaning. It's just a better treasure. What will we choose? Will you follow even if it hurts? Following Jesus means that we have to lose something. It hurts. Are we willing to upgrade our treasures? Upgrade for a better treasure. Maybe you're asking, so Andy, what are you telling me to do? Are you telling me to sell all my stuff, live in a box, and move to Africa? Maybe. I remember when I was a junior, I lived my whole life for that life, for materialism, for the perfect life, the perfect house, kids, security. That's all that I wanted. And in my junior year, Christ got a hold of my life and it just jacked my life. And my life just went in a completely different way. And I was I have seen Christ as the treasure for the first time. And I was I will live in a box. My parents didn't like that. They're you're crazy. And they but it's I will do anything in order to get that treasure. Now maybe that's what God is calling you to, but more likely is that he's calling you just to have him as the number one treasure. And just that we would be a people that would fight for the have-nots. That we would be a people that would be about a different kingdom. Some of you will be in the corporate world. And the reality is, like, will we be people who have integrity? Will we be people who have fair business practices? Will we be people who won't be cutthroat and won't cut the people down in our classes, or won't be competitive at work, or who won't put our focus on just financial security and the next promotion? Will we be people who are different? Will we be people who will lead in that capacity? Then at the same time, will we be people who will be consumers, smart, socially conscious consumers? Will we be people who will pay the extra dollar to buy fair trade chocolate? This chocolate, 10% of it goes to conserve the rainforest. I think that's pretty cool, by the way. It's a little bit bitter, but it's really good. Does somebody want the chocolate? I'm handing it out right now. I'm just going to throw it up in the middle and someone get it. But will we be a people who will be smart consumers? Will we consume with the mindset of God? You know, maybe you're asking yourself the question, well, what about my needs? What about me? How, all right, what if I do sell it all? How is God going to meet my needs? This is what Jesus has to say in Luke 12, 30 and 31. He says, your Father knows that you need them, as in food, clothes, and drink. But seek His kingdom, and these things will be given to you. He's basically saying, the Father knows you. The Father's got your back. Don't even worry about it. Just focus on the treasure. Focus on being abandoned for Christ, and the rest will work itself out. God's going to take care of it. You might also be asking, well, what about the stuff I already have? Should I just sell my stuff? Does this mean that I can't buy a video game, or I can't buy a computer? I can't do, what does this mean for us? And it means God wants us to enjoy the things that He has given us. He wants us to enjoy life. I'm not saying don't buy anything. What I am saying is that what we do buy, can we share it? Can we leverage it? Can we think of it in a kingdom mindset of how can I use this purchase to somehow benefit the kingdom? And let me give you an example. There's a guy that I know who's a wealthy businessman. And I stayed at his house one night, and he took me down to the basement, and he was just like, oh man, he's like, look at this basement. This basement was it was a finished basement. It was awesome. It had this big screen TV. It had all these games. Anything that you can imagine of an awesome basement, he had it. But he wasn't saying it in a proud, boastful way. He's saying it with such joy because he's like, man, I finished my basement and I get the opportunity to have the high school youth group come here every week and utilize my basement. And hopefully my basement will somehow lead to one of these kids falling in love with Jesus and considering Jesus as the treasure. Here's a guy who's leveraging his wealth. He's leveraging his resources. He's leveraging his privilege in order for someone to know the treasure. Will we be people like this? We are the most prosperous people who've ever walked the face of this earth. We have an opportunity to have such a global impact. More than anybody else on earth, we get an opportunity to lead. To bring this kingdom across the whole world. To show that Christ is coming with a different kingdom that is not about taking, but it's about giving. It's about sharing. It's about being about a different treasure. The question for all of us is, will you be a part of the problem, or will you be a part of the solution? Will you be a part of the problem, or will you be a part of the solution? Which master will you choose to follow? What treasure do you need to sell? What is it?Maybe on your Connect card, there's a Connect card in your bulletin. Maybe there's just something that you're like, I know that this is something that I just need to kind of lay down. I need to upgrade. What is that for you? Now I'm going to ask the band to come up. I'm going to pray for us. I could probably talk about this all day. I want to live differently. I want all of us to live differently. Can you imagine what this campus would look like if we were people who lived for other people instead of our own agenda, instead of trying to get that next position, but if we actually looked at other people and were like, man, how can I get you there? And just trusted that God would just take care of us. Wouldn't that be unbelievable? So I'm just going to pray for us real quick. Heavenly Father, I pray, God, that you would be our treasure, that you would, God, reveal yourself as so much better, as so much more valuable, as so much more worthy than any of this physical material stuff. God, you've given us good things. We don't have to feel guilty for being born here in the States. But God, you've given us that opportunity to set the tone, to be different, to impact this world. God, what a grave and serious responsibility that is, God. And Lord, I just pray that you would make us people that would just bring about your kingdom. So God, we treasure you. We thank you. In your name we pray.